So ever since I switched to flat pedals on my mountain bike about 7 years ago, I've ridden a lot of different types of flat pedal shoes. I've ridden shoes from big companies like 510, Etnies, Ride Concepts, and a couple others. And while all these shoes have been really good, they all have the same problem. They're all super expensive, ranging from anywhere from $100 to $150. So once the soles of my Freerider Pros started getting holes in them, I started looking for another pair of shoes, but it was really hard to stomach the prices. So it got me thinking, are there any actually flat pedal shoes that are really good and affordable? So in this video, we're going to take a look at a pair of flat pedal shoes that are half the price of the competition and find out, do they have similar quality for half the price? So now, let's get to it. So while browsing through Amazon, I found a pair of flat pedal shoes that caught my eye because 1, they were a shockingly good deal, and 2, they had a very similar shape and design to one of the most famous flat pedal shoes, the 510 Freerider. So the curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to pick up a pair, which at the time I purchased were $50 with a 15% discount, so I was able to pick them up for about $42. The Amazon listing didn't have any information on the brand of the shoe, but once I received, I confirmed that these were made by a company called Kescoo, and the model was the MY001. I had never heard of Kescoo before, but while doing research for this video, I found that Kescoo is a bike shoe company that was founded in 2020, and it specializes in road shoes and indoor cycling shoes. The interesting part is that these shoes don't show up on their website, and I also looked them up on Google, and I couldn't find any information on them anywhere, so evidently, they're only available on Amazon under generic branding. So the uppers of the shoe are actually pretty decent. They're made of suede and a breathable mesh, and a quick drying liner. The shoes use a rubber sole that has a very similar design to another brand. We'll get to that in a little bit. And both the heel and the front are reinforced to protect your foot from impacts from rocks and other obstacles you might find on the trails. There's also removable cushion insoles with medium arch support and an EVA midsole, which enhances cushioning and support. All the panels are double stitched, and the overall build quality is actually pretty good, especially considering the price. So when looking at these shoes, all I can think of is how close it looks to the 510 Freerider. So because of this, we're going to compare the Kescoo directly to the Freerider to see how much they share in design. So one thing to note is that both shoes are in size 12.5, and the Freerider is actually substantially shorter. They actually fit more like size 12s, whereas the Kescoos have more accurate sizing and fit like 12.5s. So just by looking at the uppers, the shoes have a very similar shape, but the upper panel design is much different. The only thing they really tend to share is the lining material, which feels almost identical. So one of the first differences are the insoles. On the 510s, they seem to be a little bit thicker and just a little bit nicer, but the Kescoos do have tiny holes for breathability. The Freerider seemed to be a tiny bit wider, and while both shoes do have toe protection, the Freerider's toe protection seems to be a little bit harder. It's not to say that the Kescoos aren't sufficient, they're just not quite up to the same protection. And while the uppers don't really have too much in common, that all changes with the sole, where the Kescoo sole is almost identical. And just by looking at the soles, you would assume they're exactly the same, but I'm guessing that Kescoo didn't want to get sued, so there are some very subtle differences. The first being the lug width, which is 12mm on the 510s, whereas the Kescoos have a lug width of 13mm. Second is the sole height, which is 29mm on the Freeriders and 31mm on the Kescoos. The third difference is that the 510s have a sole that's not only glued onto the shoe, but it's also sewn on for more durability, whereas the Kescoo soles are only glued on. The fourth difference is the 510s actually say stealth rubber on the sole, whereas the Kescoos just have a blank rectangle. And the last thing is that only by touching the soles, it appears that the Freerider soles are much softer, but I didn't have any scientific tools to verify this. So even though imitation is considered the sincerest form of flattery, let's see how these shoes actually perform. So right out of the box, I found these shoes pretty comfortable. The shoes have a nice stiff sole, but not uncomfortably stiff. Quite honestly, they just felt like a regular pair of skate shoes with a stiffer sole. And the breathability of the shoe was actually pretty good. And to be honest, I really don't have any complaints about the fitment or the comfort of the shoe itself. When riding on the trails, the shoe does a good job of muting out the vibrations of the trails really well. And if I had to make one complaint, and I am stretching on this one, it's that the shoelaces feel a little cheap. And is it a big deal? Of course not. And at this price point, cheaper shoelaces should be expected. So even though I'm nitpicking, I felt obligated to at least point this out. And while all the details I discussed so far is great and all, what really matters for most people when considering a flat pedal shoe is the grip. To many of us, this is the make or break of any flat pedal shoe. So just to get this out of the way, no. While this shoe might have a near identical sole as the Freerider, it's not as grippy as the 510 Stealth sole, which was expected. But what did surprise me is that these shoes actually have really good grip. They have about 75 to 80% of the grip of a 510. And while this may disappoint many people, I don't necessarily see lower grip as a bad thing. And what I mean by that is, in the past, I found I was going downhill in my 510s, and my feet positioning was crap. And I think we can all relate to going downhill, realizing that our right foot is too far forward, or one of our feet is positioned where it's rubbing on the crank arm. And the shoes were so sticky, you can't move your feet during the descent, and you just had to suck it up until you slow down enough that you could lift up your foot off the pedal and then set it in a comfortable position. So with that being said, with these shoes, there have been a couple of times where my foot placement was wrong, and I was able to make minor corrections and reposition my foot while on the descent. So what I've gathered from all this is that the dot pattern that 510 uses and the Kescoo took inspiration from really does make a difference in the grip of a flat pedal shoe, even if the sole is harder. So the one area where I usually like to really test out mountain bike shoes is the durability. But unfortunately, I've only been using these shoes about a month and a half or so I can't really comment on the long-term durability of the sole, stitching, and overall quality of these shoes yet. But if you are interested in a long-term update, just let me know in the comment section. So overall, these shoes really impressed me. For the $42 that I paid for these, I don't think you can go wrong with them. They're very comfortable, they're actually pretty good looking, they have good breathability, and it's just a great deal overall. The only part I wish I had more information for you guys is the long-term durability. But quite honestly, at this point, if these shoes only lasted 6 months, I still think they're worth the money. My Freerider Pros cost over 3 times the price of these shoes, and I got a hole in the sole in just a little over a year. So I guess if the Kescoo shoe can last at least 6 months or longer, it's a win. So if you're looking for a pair of affordable flat pedal shoes, and you don't want to wait for some of the bigger name brands to go on sale, I think you should give these shoes a try. Just something to know ahead of time is that the prices for the shoe do change depending on the size and the color, usually varying from $47 to $60, but there's typically a discount code, anywhere from 10 to 30% off. So thank you so much for watching this review, and if you have any questions, if you feel there's anything I missed, or just have a recommendation for other flat pedal shoes that are really good and affordable, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great one.